I'm just finishing up putting the drawer fronts on. Now, there's a couple things that you want to be aware of when you're doing that. The first is put the doors on first, and that way you can just align this drawer front with the door below it. All we did was just use a little spacer like this, just a piece of 1/2 inch material, set it on top of the door, drop the drawer front down on top of it, lined up, held it in place with a couple clamps, and then just screwed through from behind. It's a really easy process. So now that we're through with all that, we're going to do one of the most important jobs of anything on this cabinet, and that's drill for the hardware. The reason I say it's important is because if I happen to make a mistake, I could end up having to remake something or do a lot of filling work. But luckily for this job, I'm going to be using this installation jig, which takes just about all the guesswork out of it. It's set up to where I can do all the pulls and knobs for this job just with one jig. First of all, we've got these knobs that we're going to be using, and then these 3-inch center pulls. This takes all the guesswork out of it because it has settings that do all the thinking for me. I always like to start by drilling my doors first. Now we're using a single pull on the doors, so I need to come and line up right here with this rail. That's what we decided earlier. And it's also important that I be centered on this stile. Again, this is 2.5 inches, so I want to be right in there 1.25 inches. The good news is the jig is going to take care of all that alignment for me. Now the first thing that I did was take one of the drill bushings and move it over to the center position on the jig. I put the other one in my pocket where it won't get lost. On the back, we've got this fence. That's going to take care of that alignment from the edge over, so I don't even have to think about that. And there's a built-in scale. I don't have to take my tape measure out to read it. I can just see that I can set on 1.25 inches, set both sides, lock them down. I don't have to worry about that anymore at all. So now let's take a look at how this actually works. Just going to bring in this Automax clamp to hold it in place. Now, one of the things I really like about this jig, it's super simple. All I've got to do to get on the other door is just flip it over and come from the other side. So it's very, very repeatable. It's so important for these to line up. Have to get that perfect every time, and this jig takes all the guesswork out of it for me. So that drill guide bushing keeps me going straight through, which means I'm going to get a great hole every time, and there's very little tear out on the back. I finished up drilling the doors, and the clients wanted to see what the hardware looked like, so I went ahead and put all the knobs in place. Now I'm getting ready to start on drilling for the drawers. Now for the drawers, we're using these pulls that are a 3-inch center pull. The jig is going to take care of getting that spacing perfectly for me because I just adjust these drill guides right to where it says 3 inches. I don't have to worry about anything from there. Now, in the past, I've even made some like wooden jigs, but the problem with that is for a pull like this, if you don't get drilled straight through and you've got 2 screws, before you know it, you're really making a mess. So that's what I love about this. It keeps me drilling straight through, and I'm going to get exactly the same spacing and hole every time. So what I've done is put a mark in the center of the drawer this way, and on the back I adjusted my fence so that it's going to space me down perfectly from the top edge to be centered this direction. The mark here is going to center me the other direction. Now, I'm pretty cautious about this, so what I like to do is actually take my tape measure and I measure this way. That's 6 13/16. And I check back this way, that's 6 13/16. I did the math to find the center first, but then I just basically reverse my tape measure to make sure I'm getting it absolutely centered, which is way better than misdrilling a drawer. So let's see how this works. I'm just going to set the jig right on top and move it over until my center line matches up with that mark on the jig. Now that I've got this secured just where I want it, all I've got to do is drill my 2 holes. And that's a perfect alignment. That's going to work great. I'll just tighten them up and move on to the next drawer. Well, that totally finishes me up on this job. I'm ready to turn it over to the painters and the other tradespeople now. You know, looking around, I've got to say that it really turned out better than I ever could have imagined. And I'm sure you've noticed that with the Kreg hardware jigs, every part of the job went easier, from installing the doors, to putting the drawers in place, to finishing up drilling with the hardware. Every step of the way, my job was a lot easier because of those jigs. Now, I can't wait to come back and see this house. I know that these people are going to enjoy it so much. We've gone from this cramped kitchen that was outdated to something that's modern, spacious, and it's going to be well lit. They're going to enjoy so much living and entertaining here. And if they ever decide to sell it, I know this kitchen is going to be one of the strong selling points.